Hello YouTube audience. Uh, Today I'm going to work on this dawn viburnum. I repotted it this February, I believe, and you can see it has survived and I think it's thriving. So I think it's about time to do the first work of the year. You can see the sign that the plant is ready is it's growing a lot of long shoots, and the leaves have hardened off and no longer the fluorescent green of the new leaves. It's already show a dark green, and I think the energy spent in making these leaves has been recovered, and we also have sufficient time for the root to recover. So I think it's about time to do the first pruning. Also, in developing this bonsai, I have planned to remove all these pots above, because it's such a mess right now. How I'm going to do it is I'm going to air layer this top, and after the air layer send out roots, I'm going to remove this whole top section of the plant currently on the left side of the screen. Okay, let's get to it. So most people, when they talked about pruning, and for you first look at whether this is a deciduous tree or whether this is a conifer. And so the major difference between pruning deciduous tree and conifer is, for conifer you cannot prune it back to no green or the branch will die. And for deciduous tree you can actually prune a branch back to sometimes you can defoliate the plant and get rid of every single leaf if the plant is growing strongly, and it's still going to come back to life, because deciduous tree, broadleaf deciduous tree, they store so much energy in the root system, so they naturally defoliate every year anyway, so it doesn't afraid to be pruned back to nothing. But for conifer you cannot do that. And the next, if we have a deciduous tree like what we have right now, this is a dawn viburnum, we can look at the leaf pattern next. Some leaves, some plants, they have opposite leaf pattern like what we have here. What we have here, if you look at a shoot, every leaf, they come out opposite to each other, so that's opposite leaf pattern. So everywhere we prune, there will be two shoots coming out in the direction roughly the same as the leaf come out. So then that's the basis for directional pruning, how you want the branch to grow, and you would have a estimation of how the shoot will come out. So that's opposite leaf pattern. And the other is alternative leaf pattern. So you have a leaf here, you will not have a leaf here, and you have a leaf here. So the main difference is, I think, simply where you prune back to. For a opposite leaf pattern tree, you can prune it back to first pair of leaves, which it would generate 2 shoots, and when one shoot go into 2, it increase the number of branches or the ramification of tree, which is ideal, what bonsai people kind of want. But in a alternative leaf pattern tree, and normally not often, but most of the time prune back to the 3rd leaf on the stem, because the first leaf normally are dormant. They will not send out shoot if you prune back to. So you need 2 more leaves added to the first leaf to generate ramification. So that's the reason. And that's it. That's how to prune, directional prune a deciduous tree. It's that simple in terms of general rules. But what I realized is that most people, when they teach bonsai, they are trying to tell people simple rules so that they can maintain their trees. But because most of the hobbyists like me, they normally buy a bonsai and just try to maintain it. But I'm more interested in developing a bonsai from scratch. So I don't buy bonsai, I buy plants and put them into bonsai pot and train them. I find that much more interesting than just buying a bonsai and just maintain them. So for people who want to develop a bonsai, there is one important element that's normally not taught, is that what not to prune. To prune is very simple. You just prune back to the first pair of leaf or the 3rd leaf. Depends on whether the tree is opposite leaf pattern or alternative leaf pattern. That's very simple. But more nuanced is that there are some shoot we should let it develop, and that's the problem of what not to prune. And I've been thinking about this problem for a while, and here is my answer. So anything that you wanted to thicken, you don't want to prune, obviously. So in my mind, I would think about the difference between a branch and the continuation of the trunk line. The trunk ideally would need to be thicker than the branch. So if a branch, for example, if I prune here, let me try to enlarge and focus on the area I'm talking about. Okay, I think that's probably good. For example, here, I pruned up the top here, and you can see typical opposite leaf pattern. It sent out 2 shoots. So if you just follow the typical guide, you just prune this shoot back to the first pair of leaf, and this shoot back to the first pair of leaf, You don't need to distinguish anything, and that would create a okay bonsai. But the problem is, this two branch would be the same size, and there will be no distinction between what is the continuation of the trunk line and what is a side shoot. But if in your heart you have an idea of what is the trunk line and what is a side shoot, you should only prune off the side shoot to the first pair of bud and leave the trunk to thicken and prune it off much later. So you need to skip some prunes for the trunk line to develop, and you should always prune back hard for the side shoot, so you can distinguish in terms of thickness which one is the trunk and which one is the side shoot. So here I decided I want this to continue to develop into the trunk line. So I'm going to keep this branch to thicken, and this I'm going to prune off. So when I have that in mind, I know what to prune and what to leave. Okay, so I'm going to just simply do that. When I prune, I always leave a stump for it to die back to. We don't have to prune it back to where the leaf bud is. We can do it later. So I'm prune off this, and then we will have a ramification come out from this place. But I'm going to keep this for it to thicken until this branch is only slightly smaller than this major trunk line. Then I've created enough taper, then I'm going to prune it off. And it would be the same if I prune it off here, for example, a year later. This will be much thicker, but it's still going to send out ramifications, still going to send out side shoot. And when that happens, I'm going to need to decide which one is the continuation of the trunk line and which one is the side branch again. So that's roughly my process of designing how to prune. The important thing that's omitted is people normally just tell you what to prune, but they forgot to tell you what not to prune. And for example, another example would be so these trees, they have very obviously trees, they are apically dominant, meaning the top shoots are stronger than the side shoots, than the lower shoot. So the other thing not to prune is, if I want these to develop, I would need to keep them. I would not want to prune them right now, so that they can elongate and develop strength, so that they become branches. In this case, I do not want to prune this too. I want to give them chance and see if they can develop into stronger shoots. Okay, so I'm going to just prune this side. Again, I decided this would be the continuation of this trunk line, so I'm not going to prune it. I'm going to prune the branch that's opposite to it. like this one. Here, this first place, this first pair of leaves, I think is a little bit, come out a little bit too close to the trunk. And if I prune it back to the first pair of shoots, it may look too dense, too much ramification sometimes may not always be a good thing. So I'm going to prune back actually to the second pair of leave a stump for it to die back to. And there are a lot of these small shoots come out from here, which I don't need. It's only going to create inverse taper for me, so I'm not going to need those. At least for now, I don't need it. So I'm going to just prune off these little side shoots. And this is something that happens often in dawn viburnum. It's very prolific to send out side shoots, and I don't want those. I'm going to skip this prune for this major trunk line to develop. These inner shoots I don't need. I don't want it to develop inverse taper for me, so I'm going to prune it off. Dawn viburnum normally often do that. So what I need to clean out the trunk line and don't let it thicken too much in places that's not necessary. So in the back I can see better. So we want this branch to grow outward here, and I don't need this inner branch. It's only going to create inverse taper, meaning creating a bulge. Okay. So also, I think early this year I have pruned off some stumps, and now I can just come back and clean up those stumps, or I can clean it up later this year. I want to give it a little bit more chance to compartmentalize. For example, here there is a stump. I intentionally keep a longer part. I want to prune this whole thing off ultimately, but I leave a stump there for it to die back to. If it ever dies back, I would not lose the two side shoots due to dieback. Okay, all this inner cluster of growth, I'm going to cut it off. To review the trunk line. I don't really need all these inner growth, which the tree really like to develop. Dawn viburnum flower really smells good, but the leaves, when you prune them, it doesn't smell that good to me. So I'm just cleaning out all these cluster of growth, inner growth, that's both weak and not useful for the design of the tree. These are all very weak growth. I don't think we need the branch to come out from here. So what I'm considering right now is this junction. We have this branch and a branch come out from the back, which is this branch. This branch really come very nicely outside of a curve, so it's a very good branch. Traditionally, this would be a very good branch. But I'm considering whether the back branch is worth keeping. I mean this branch, because if all the branches coming out are left, right, this tree would be too dimensional. If we have a back branch there, it could be good. It could be good. But to keep that branch, I will need to sacrifice this branch, which is coming out from a very good place. I can, through wiring, I can wire it this way a little bit. For now, let me just keep it. I can decide on how to deal with it later. So that's simply this side of the branch. I have kept the top branches, the leader, to thicken, and I'm going to keep these lower branches untouched, so hopefully one of them gained some strength and developed into a proper branch. I'm going to remove some of these bigger leaves just to give the lower part of the tree more sunlight. Yeah, I think this side is good. It's done. And this side is very simple because I have intended to cut it here. So what I need to do is simply, I think, just an air layering of this top part. And this top part, if the air layering take, will be made into a clump style, which is the natural style of Dawn viburnum. Let me see if I can zoom in into the pot that I would like to air layer. So it's here. You can see a huge cluster on the top, which is naturally a clump. And I'm just going to try to rain the bark here right under those clump of branches. And then see if I can air layer it from there. I always maintain that there is no downside to air layering, almost no. Because when you air layer, even if you fail, you just don't get a new tree, but you still create a partial cut before you cut off the branch at that site. So you are getting the branch used to life without the part you air layering. So it's still good for the plant. It's less likely to create dieback. At least that's what I think. I thought I bring a small knife, but I may be wrong. I probably forgot to bring my knife again, so I'm going to leave for a minute to get a knife. For those that are not familiar with what air layering is, it's simply we cut the bark out of a section of a branch, and we basically peel the bark off in a rain fashion, so that we cut off the, maybe blocked by the, okay, now you can see it. So right under the bark we can see a green layer, which is the layer where the energy generated by the root and the hormone that generated by the root are sent back to the root system. So if we simply cut that layer off, it's going to block this transportation of energy and hormones. What this will do, because we didn't cut the sap root, which is where water and nutrition will transport to the leaf. So the leaf will still grow, but it will not send back energy and hormone, especially it will not send back oxygen. which is the hormone that the leaf tell the roots, I'm growing well and please grow more roots, and so that I can get more water and energy. So the leaves send back oxygen to the root to ask the root to grow. When we cut this green layer, which is the cambium of the branch, they would not be able to send that signal back to the root. Instead, it would accumulate at where you cut. So instead of growing the root, they are going to send back root where you cut the branch. Maybe a little bit out of range. We can still see. So I'm simply cutting the bark and the green layer underneath. So this green layer is also how you judge whether a tree is dead or alive in the winter, because it's actually a good time to buy deciduous tree in the winter, or before it leaves out, or before it flowers. When it leaves out and it flower, they probably are sell in full price. But when it's bare with no leaf, no flowers on the branch, most people would not buy them, and thus they are normally sell in a lower price. So problem is, if there is no leaves, no flower on the tree, how do you know it's alive? If you just simply slightly scrape the bark, a small section of the bark, and if you see that green layer, then it means it's alive. Then you can buy the tree. But don't just go and scrape everyone. You just find a tree that you think, if it's alive, you will buy it, and then you scrape the bark. And if it's a dead tree, of course, by scraping the bark, you cannot harm it. If it's a living tree, then you buy it. I think that's ethical. Don't just scrape a random tree in the nursery if you are not intended to buy it. And you don't have to rain bark it like what I'm doing here. I'm trying to air layer to judge whether a tree is alive. You need to use your fingernails and very, very gently scrape a very small section of the branch, and if it's alive, you can get the tree. Okay, I'm pretty close to rain barking the tree. I almost got the whole thing. So don't leave this green here, or it's going to breach. It's going to continue to send signal back to the roots, and would lower the chance of success for the air layering. So I'm cutting from the lower part to the top, because it's easier for me to hold a knife, but it may be better to cut from the top to the bottom, because the top part is more important, because roots are going to be sent out from the top. So the top cut will need to be clean. But it's too difficult for me to hold a knife and cut from the top, so that's why I'm cutting from the bottom up. But the best way is to cut from the side where well, we may not be able to see the last part, but I'm going to continue and remove all that bark. So we actually need to remove both the cambium and phloem, which is a very thin layer under the green layer, normally invisible. So after we remove the green layer, we just scrape the bark a little bit more. That should get the phloem. We're not cutting into the sapwood, so the top part should survive. It should. Okay, I hope we can see the ring layer right now. And then the difficult part would be how do we fit a pot around this thing. Now the root hopefully will come out from the from above where we make the cut, but after the root come out, we still need a substrate for the root to survive, to keep the root moist and growing. So what we are going to do is we're going to put a pot around where the cut is and put sphagnum moss around it to ensure that growth. Yeah, that's a difficult part, to fit the pot around this area of clusters. So I'm going to first cut this pot a little bit. So this is of course a hydraulic pot, which many water plants are grown in. It's going to provide a lot of airflow into the system, and then the root is going to grow very happily. Okay, I've cut the top part off, and hopefully it's going to fit easier into the. So I'm also want to open up a place so that I can open the pot and fit it in. See, I'm cutting off the bottom of this pot so that I think it's going to fit very well. If I can simply find a way to fit this pot in, that would be very nice. I also don't want to damage the leaf beneath the cut, because they are going to be my future trunk line. Okay, wow, that's quite a good fit. The only thing I need to solve is I wanted to tilt a little bit, so I would need to fit this branch into the pot a little. So it may be difficult to see, but there is a branch protruding from the pot. I want to fit this into the pot a little bit better. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this and then just feed this branch into the pot a little bit more. Oh, I see a spider, which is a good sign. Spider is protecting the plant from other insects. I'm gonna cut several more places to fit the branches through. There actually are 3 branches. Okay, okay. That's good. That's good. I probably don't need to keep that branch, but it's not bad to keep it. Okay. This thing has fit pretty well. I almost don't need to put any wire or anything to stabilize it, almost. Oh, I still need to fit that through to kind of hold it up a little bit. That branch will be holding up. Maybe I should do it behind these two new branches. Okay, that's good. I think that's perfect. I may need to sacrifice some inner leaves for this air layering, but that's completely fine. Okay. So the pot is fit in there, and now I just need to dust the cut with some rooting hormone. Just any rooting hormone would be fine. I probably should take out the pot first. Although it took me some effort to put the pot in, but I don't think it would be that difficult to take it out first and dust it with the hormone first, and then put it back in. That probably would be the correct sequence of action. I'm going to so what I should do first, I should wet the cut side first. Just wet this area. I'm simply using some wet sphagnum moss I prepared, and then I'm going to dust this area with sphagnum with rooting hormone. I only need to dust the area above the cut because that's where the root will come out from. I don't really need to use rooting hormone. It's not 100% necessary, but it may help to accelerate the rooting process. Okay. Now I'm going to put the pot back in, and also put that branch back in place. All right. it's in place. I just need to try to fit all the sphagnum moss in. I hope I don't disturb the spider too much. Some of the lower leaves are going to drop because the way I'm pushing sphagnum moss in kind of damaged some of them. But as long as the air layering survive, it would be fine. And what I can do is I can tightly, let's see whether I would have a long enough wire. I probably have a lot of long enough wires. I'm simply going to tighten this a little bit. The spider keep thinking I'm destroying the tree, keep trying to run away, but his or her home will be fine. It will still be there after this work. I'm trying to fit sphagnum moss around the cut point and try to fit it well in there so that when roots come out, it's going to have enough water. Oh dear, there is a space here to fit in more sphagnum moss. This sphagnum moss I have right here is probably just directly collected from the forest floor, because there are some dead branches, dead leaves in it. So it should be relatively inexpensive. Okay, I think that's filled enough. I hope I don't scare the spider too much. I want to keep it on this tree so that he or she can protect that tree from other insects. Okay, I think I'm done. Some leaves that need to be removed. Okay, you can see it, the sphagnum moss fit in there pretty nicely. Okay, I think that's good, and because this pot is so open, I will need to water it pretty often. But because this tree requires water often anyway, so I would just water the air layer when I water the tree. So that would be fine. So this is the first pruning and some air layering of the tree. Now these lower branches are still pretty weak. I'm going to keep all these lower branches, and when I separate this top air layering, the lower branches will really gain strength. So I think they will be fine there. So one more thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put some beneficial mycorrhiza and bacteria into the soil, just onto the soil. It's going to help the tree be a little bit stronger. It's not fertilizer, it's just bacteria, beneficial bacteria and fungus. Ideally, I should have mixed that in the soil when I repot, but I did not have this thing at the time I repot, so I did not mix it in. And after this, I'm just going to give it a good watering and wash out all the excess rooting powder on the leaves and on the soil. And I think that would be the work for today. And I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time. Bye.